Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Data Migration to the Cloud. Presenting today we have Ed, Andrew and Salim from one of our partners, Bluesource.
Morning all, thanks for joining us. My name is Andrew North. I'm Solutions Director here at Bluesource. We're one of Byte's long-standing partners. We've been in the ecosystem for a number of years. We specialise in a number of different solutions, but today we're focusing on solutions around the digital workspace, information management, archiving and migration space. So we've been helping organisations, small, medium and large, move data for a number of years. We've moved petabytes worth of data and billions of messages for organisations. So we thought we'd share some of our stories and some of our learnings with you and give you some hints and tips on what to do and what not to do in our experiences in and around archive migrations. So what's interesting as we look at looking at what we're going to cover off today, we're going to have a look at where we see the market, some of the challenges that our companies and our clients are facing, how we tackle migrations, and some of the things to bear in mind. And then at the end we'll wrap up with some helpful hints and tips and checklists for you to take away. So there's some useful things to stick around for. But if we start with where we've come from and what we're seeing at the moment, obviously movement to the cloud, as many of us are seeing, is something that is fairly ubiquitous. So the percentages vary depending on the source or the particular set that you look at. The ones that we've taken today from the Cloud Industry Forum, so 84% of organisations using cloud technology and lots more using more than one cloud-based service. Interestingly, the increase in the speed of move to the cloud, we've got 50% of people moving to the cloud over the next X period, whether that's 3, 5, 10 years. But importantly, the 70% figure using cloud and actually increasing that over the next 12 months shows that the rate of adoption, the rate of change is very significant at the moment. Of course, one of the significant challenges that people have isn't so much that is it a good idea in general, it's actually the how. And it's very much the how and the what that we want to focus on today. So try to make it as crunchy and relevant to you as possible. Obviously, there's also an awful lot of experience out there, and whether it's in the advisory or the delivery capacity, what we're seeing is a lot of people know where they want to end up, but they're not always entirely sure of how to get there. So there's an end-to-end chain that we're helping, advising, and supporting clients on. For some, it's a little bit of point advice, and for others, it tends to be either spot assistance through the project, or others need to have a fully managed service. And we're seeing that as quite an interesting shift in the market as well. So a little bit of interactivity for you, if you don't mind. What we'd like to start by asking, we're only going to ask 2 questions. The first is where are you on your cloud journey today? So on your screen should pop up a little poll. If you could select one of the answers for us, and then we'll share those with the audience in just a second. So I kind of know where I am. I know I want to do something. I'm going to do something, or I'm already there. So, Cassie, do we have some results for that?
Yes, we do. Let me just share them on the screen. So as you can see, we have 50% who have said looking at moving some initial services in the next 6 months, 33% moving a few different workloads in the next 12 to 24 months, and 17% already moved the majority of services to the cloud. And then as you, 0% said I'm not sure where to start. So that's great. You have an idea.
Thank you, team. God, what a way to start. Okay, so moving rapidly on, let's go to number 2.
Yep.
So, obviously a lot of you are either in process or have made those moves already, which is great, and I'm glad to see that you're here looking for some more info. The question, I guess, to make sure that we can get you the information as relevant as possible today is which of the services that you're actually likely to move, or where are you on your service selection? So is it an archiving play? Is it backup DR information management? Is it more of an email management, email messaging, or are you looking at voice comms traffic, so whether it's a Bloomberg or a Reuters or IM chat, or is it any line of business apps or application data that you're looking to move up? So again, if you could just select the one that you think is most relevant. Okay, do we have any updates from the...
Yeah, we do. I'm just sharing the results now. Okay, as you can see, 60% said archiving and e-discovery, 40% was backup and DR, 80% was email messaging, 60% voice and communications, and 40% app dev testing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, from our quick and simple poll, obviously we can see that most people have begun the process of moving, and the majority are looking at historical data, largely focused around messaging, and actually that's very consistent with messaging. So 4 broad reasons for migrating, be that the move to the cloud that we've already talked about, so a lot of organizations moving to Office 365 specifically. We've got those moving from a different cloud archive at the moment to Office 365, or from the likes of legacy or heritage solutions such as Enterprise Vault to other solutions such as Mimecast. Obviously, Bytes are quite a strong Mimecast supporter, so if you talk to an account manager there about that, they'll be able to assist. M&A activity, so we've got a lot of consolidation. The management of journals and regulatory management of compliance information is going to be one of the driving forces in both system selection and how things are moved over the next 2 years. It's a specialism of ours, so we work with a lot of regulated industries. We work with a lot of organizations for whom 100% record of all email across the organization is something that we help them both provide, supply, and move. So that's something that we can also talk about another time. But that also then extends into the GDPR regulations as they come into force over the next 18 months. It's not something you have to worry about today, and it's definitely something to stick on your roadmap for the back end of this year. They're going live in May next year, but one's need to actually look at how one's going to be compliant and actually move data is important. And then we've got a lot of old, bad, dodgy, dark, rubbish data in places that it doesn't need to be. So the natural complexity in life of actually running an IT infrastructure, as well as the PST sprawl over many years. And a lot of organizations have data in old NAS, SANs that actually they're not entirely sure what to do with, and naturally it's a better, easier, quicker, cheaper place to store it. So there's a number of challenges, some of which I've just mentioned. Really focusing on where is it, what do I do with it, who's it focused around, and we've broken these down into 3 key buckets for today's purposes. So the first one is compliance considerations. I've talked a little bit about that already. An awful lot of organizations have specific regulations. HR require different types of data stored for different amounts of time, as do legal and audit and tax and finances. GDPR and Brexit become interesting in 2 different ways. GDPR I've mentioned. Brexit interesting because it will be the source and end location of different tenants, or the geographical management of the data becomes increasingly important moving forwards. So localized management, localized storage of the different target data, and actually how we get the data there. Obviously nobody knows long term at the moment how it's going to pan out, but we certainly expect geographical management of data to be very, very important moving forwards. We talked about M&A a little. One of the significant challenges that we see is when we've got multiple platforms coexisting. So whether it's big swallowing small or small encompassing big, the consolidation of platforms often means difficult, long, and frankly expensive migrations if they're not managed well, and also with significant risk. So where you've got the consolidation, it's simply the making sure that you've got all the records in one place. When you've got the split and the reverse of that, it is equally as complicated. We see a lot of M&A work where organisations are struggling to be able to divest their either functional or data pools quickly, which can give them some very nasty headaches when it comes to regulatory compliance or just running the business. And the third is very much around the user experience, and probably the most questions that we get, and the biggest driver for running these projects at all is actually search. So we often talk most about archiving or storage subsystems, whether it's mail or structured or unstructured data, as being around the storage of information, and as infrastructure or IT execs, managers, or in those teams, we're very much responsible for where it lives. But of course, the bigger problem, certainly the bigger problem moving forward, is how do I get it back? So search, the user experience, is driving an awful lot of end users and platform selection. The choice over whether to retain shortcuts or not, how one is searching across how many platforms one is searching, whether you're keeping old folder structures, and also when you are moving data, how and when and where and in what order do you move it? And of course, all of this subordinated to the fact that grumpy users mean noise in the system, which is the thing that we're trying to avoid at all costs. So that's what we do, and we do it very well. Of course, you'd expect me to say that. But what's interesting is when you look at the sheer number of sources, targets, from on-prem through hybrid through to the cloud, there are so many different types. And the good news is we have good experience in helping you move all of them. So whether you're talking about Lotus, whether you're talking about Enterprise Vault, whether you're talking about going into or out of Mimecast or Office 365, we can provide the point or the programmatic assistance, and we've got some really good case studies and some client stories that we're going to share shortly. A quick word on hybridized and cloud services for a second. One of the things that we're seeing is, I've mentioned two things already. There are really three or four components to where organizations, or to what we're seeing. Historically, the archive was solving one of two problems. It was solving both a storage problem and a compliance problem. And some of the storage problems is solved through the cloud solutions that we have today, but they don't necessarily solve the hygiene or the journaling scenarios, specifically with mid to large or regulated organizations. So that's where we provide hybridized solutions, and we actually provide our own. With those of you who come across the Enterprise Vault solution, we actually provide a hybridized on-prem or in Azure Enterprise Vault. We talked about Mimecast a little earlier on, providing both hygiene and secondary archive capabilities and capacity to Office 365. And we've got Office 365 as a core go-to location for millions and millions of different companies globally now. Sorry, millions of different users and hundreds of thousands of companies. If you look at the overall penetration of Office 365 in the UK market, you're actually looking at over 50% at the moment, and actually Bytes are one of the key license delivery teams and specialists in the UK. So they got one of the largest shares. So also specialists in that area. So I'm gonna bring in one of our experts who actually runs all of our migrations globally, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the previous migrations that we've run, because then we can talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we're also seeing and things to avoid. So I'm going to bring in Salim Alkman at this point. Salim, run us through some of the things that we've done and challenges that we see.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start with the one for ES to EV.cloud migration, which is essentially a client has had a merger. They acquired a company. They were already using EV.cloud, but the company they acquired, they were using EAS, and they needed to move the data out of EAS archiving solution, remove the shortcuts, and actually migrate the mailboxes into Exchange Online. And they had a deadline of getting out of the data center in 3 months' time. That was the challenge we faced, that they needed to move mailboxes and archive data all out of the data center in 3 months' time. And we assisted them through the journey, combining mailbox migration and archive data extraction into EV.cloud. The main challenges we found in that migration was user experience, educating users on the removal of shortcuts and aligning the mailbox moves with their personal archive being ready in EV.cloud. So as the shortcuts are deleted and the mailbox is moved, their personal archive are already ready for them, waiting for the user to log on. And mail was on O365, and anything in the archive, they had personal archive within Veritas EV.cloud.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, are there any other types of migration that you think are fairly representative of some of the challenges that the folks on the webinar might be seeing at the moment? What other ones would you like to point out?
Yeah, the main one we are seeing at the moment, a lot of clients are moving into O365, specifically from EV, Email Extender, and EAS. And we find it surrounding the shortcuts, the user functionality. What users see today is they've got a Vault Cache, virtual vault. They use EV stubs to retrieve archived items, and in O365, as you probably know, shortcuts from EV, they may work, but they are not supported. So eventually they will need to be removed. But how do you do that transition from EV, migrate the data into O365 in a timely manner?
Okay, perfect. If we have a bit more time, what we'll do is we'll come back to some of these at the end, or if you've got any questions about specific scenarios that you'd like to cover, please stick them into the chat window and we'll cover them through the Q&A. I want to keep on moving at a pace, keep everybody awake. So one of the things that we've certainly found, running a number of these so far, is doing it in a structured, methodical, certainly an organised way really helps. So we'd certainly recommend, however you're going to do it, whoever you're doing it with. So what we're going to cover now is some of here are the things, here are the sort of top tips and hints from us where we've done it before. So where we typically engage, we look at a planning workshop. We then go and run some kind of health check. We'll make sure that we know, where it's coming from, where it's going to, and there are some things that we'll cover off in just a second. Run through the POC and then get to either a phased or a full migration. And these are the things here that actually become critical. So between Salim and I, we're going to cover them off. So things to bear in mind include making sure that you have the right set of escalation points and that you actually know who is going to be involved in the program from the beginning. An awful lot of organizations underestimate the timescales. So whilst there might be significant management pressure to move something overnight or over the weekend or by Monday, which is fine, which we understand, there are often some very practical considerations around the movement of the bits and the bytes. And sometimes a lot of data takes a lot of time to move. And actually setting expectations at all levels is probably one of the single most important things that you can do at the outset of the project. There's often an underestimation of resources available. So who's actually going to be needed to complete the project? And whether it's us, whether it's your internal teams, or whether it's a hybrid of the two, doesn't really matter. What's important is making sure that you've got the bandwidth and actually the burst bandwidth to be able to deliver some critical thinking, some time, and some management when things inevitably go a little bit squirrely or a little bit bumpy. I'm going to come to the third-party tool selection in just a second, because it's one of the key decisions. Connectivity between location A and location B. You've got something coming out of a shed and going into a different shed, basically, just happens to be one in the cloud. And you do need to make sure that you have decent connectivity, that it's tested, that it's reliable. You may want quads on that, or you may want to just make sure that you have, again, set the expectations of what is achievable. Because bandwidth and throughput it's predictable, it's manageable, and you can see what you've got and what you're going to need. Reporting, I'm going to tackle with the tool usage. Health of the source system. So there's a lot of migrations that we've run where there's been an expectation that that the existing system works well enough. One of the challenges to bear in mind is that most migrations, when you're extracting data, unless you're doing it at the back end, if you're doing it through some form of mid or front end API, it's going to put some kind of loading on your existing system. So please bear in mind that if you're doing it and user experience is key and important, then again, setting their expectations or doing it out of hours, which may extend the project, is something that you should probably consider. Commercial versus internal cost is, it may be fairly straightforward and fairly logical, but again, occasionally overlooked. I've run a couple of projects where they've actually taken somewhere between 18 and 24 months before they've reached us, and the clients are more than capable of doing the work, but actually there becomes a time pressure to actually get things done. So that sometimes becomes almost staff augmentation, but actually it's about making sure that you get an output, an outcomes-based approach rather than just a DIY one. And we'll come back to that in a second. So I mentioned about third-party tools and native tools. So this is, again, one of the other most important things. We wouldn't mandate or say you should do one or the other, but there are some supporting reasons for what we would certainly recommend you think about. I'm going to bring Salim back in at this point. So Salim, talk to us about what are the options available to teams looking at moving data?
You can use native tools within the archiving product that you are using today to export that data. Primarily, they tend to export into PST or bring it back into the Exchange mailbox. Now, that has its own challenges, but most clients use native tools to extract that data into PST and then import that to the target platform. One of the challenges in there is handling of the corrupt data. You tend to see that native tools do not handle corrupt data well, and the PSC extraction tend to stop. It does need a lot of time spent to rectify or find out even which item it's failing on, let alone being able to make it continue while it's logging a failure. And you see the benefit of using a third-party tool where it will log the status of a failed item and then progress to the next item. So they are equipped to handle corruption a lot better than the native tools.
Cool. And we probably won't have time to go through all of the list in detail. So if there's anything else that you'd like to go through specifically, please do ask it in the Q&A, or we can always run a separate session. Is there anything else that you'd specifically call out that's kind of top of mind and that's really critical for the audience to consider?
Yeah, the journaling. If you are migrating the journal data, chain of custody, ability to know that you are using the right method to migrate the data, getting the envelope report, that report showing you who was a member of distribution list, point in time when that message was sent, is very critical. And if you use native tools, you will see one of the example later in the slides that data, metadata information gets lost if you do extraction using native tools, and that could lead into data loss effectively, because you want to be able to say explicitly who received that message.
Okay, so the whole auditability, chain of custody, reporting, and audit is, if I'm right, from what I'm hearing, is actually one of the most critical reasons why people are choosing tools over none.
Yes,
cool.
That's right.
Good stuff. Thanks, Salim. Okay, so we're kind of approaching. We're going to kind of rapidly go through the last few segments and get to Q&A to keep it relevant to you guys. We thought we'd touch on three experiences where, let's just say, we had some challenges, or at least our customers did. So these were ones where our customers started and we helped them along the way, I think would be fair to say. So Salim's going to take us through the three different scenarios. Which one would you like to start with, Salim?
The new migrations always take this long.
So, do they really? Oh, man. So this is going to take, what 12 months, 24 months? So what happened?
Clients, we met with the client. They were looking into moving to O365. We mentioned about third-party tool and native tool. They mentioned, yeah, we could do that, exporting the archive data back into EV, into Exchange mailbox, and then we'll just move the mailbox. After 9 months of trying to move their data, now they decided that actually let's have a look at third-party tool and please help us to manage and migrate the data.
Okay, and what happened then?
And we took them through that journey. We migrated the data straight into O365 in-place archive while they focused in migrating the mailboxes.
Okay, so hang on a second. You just talked about the in-place archive in O365. I thought Office 365 didn't have a journaling capability. I didn't think you could actually manage an individual user's archive if it's come from a different historical archive. Is that right?
You can migrate the data into in-place archive or into primary mailbox if you decided to.
Okay.
We have had customers who had shortcuts, EV shortcuts stubs that have been archived from Exchange online mailbox into in-place archive, and we can scan using third-party tools and rehydrate those shortcuts. So you have the option with third-party tool, put it in primary mailbox or in-place archive directly, on-premise or on 365.
Okay, thanks. So that becomes quite important for regulatory requirements or organizations who still need to manage a journal. Great. So where's my data gone, Celine?
Yeah, this is a classic where the client had the journal data and they used a native tool, extracted the data, it got moved into the cloud archive, but because it was missing the envelope reports, the distribution list could not say who was the member point in time, and some users in their personal archive, they were not getting tagged to that item, and therefore they had lost the data. We had to help them to re-extract the data with envelope reconstruction.
Ah, okay. And then the final of our client whoopsies, I need to move my archives. What does that mean?
Yeah, we had clients which you see most of the time. Mailbox migration is the prime focus. Archive is not considered, so they moved mailboxes thinking the archive is legacy data, is not in use. They found out that the contracts were being referenced in the latest emails, but actually the actual contract is in the legacy data sitting in enterprise vaults. And the users had to search in 3 different areas: primary mailbox in Office 365, in-place archive in Office 365, and then if it's not there, get the web search from EV and search it from there, which caused a lot of pain, and we needed to help migrate that data.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much, Celine. I'm going to fast forward through the next couple of slides. I think we've touched a little bit about who we are. We thought we'd just stick it in there very quickly. Hopefully by now you can understand our credentials in the space. So we've moved a lot of mail for a long time, and we run it globally. So working with Bytes for a long time. So it's something that we can absolutely help with. Whether it's in the UK, different organisations, different continents. One of the things that obviously there's a cloud focus to this session, but actually looking then at the broader platform, so looking into Azure, looking at the broader digital workplace solutions and information management has been something that we've been doing for a number of years. So working with Bytes, working with Microsoft is core front and center for us. So this is one of the key takeaways from us, and certainly one of the places that I'd recommend you come back to. When we run a number of these, here are the 6 to ponder on and take away. So when you're thinking about moving, front and center is, do you have compliance or regulatory requirements on your old archive? That's very much going to determine whether you're going to need reporting, whether you're going to need to use tools, and the relative care and speed and cost of a migration. The second that we referenced earlier on is very much about user experience. As much as they can be a pain in the backside, our users are our clients, and we do need to make sure that we serve them and serve them well. So actually understanding both the migration approach, but also the search requirements and the usability requirements becomes absolutely critical to the successful outcome and the PR associated with the projects that you're responsible for and that you'll be running. We talked about HR, which is very much a subset actually of compliance. So who needs to have access to what? And we also talked about the need to either consolidate or split different platforms. So that does make things tricky, certainly when you come to taking old platforms into the cloud and actually needing to run them into a per user based scenario such as O365. And then we've talked about what happens if it goes bang, and how do you manage and prepare for not losing data. So we do that normally through the use of tools. One of the reasons that we have a 24/7 service is because we can then provide the reporting on each individual single item. So of those 17 billion items, we know where they are. That doesn't mean that they'll all get migrated, because sometimes you do have corrupt data, and unfortunately we can't do anything about the corrupt data that you have on disk. But what we can do is tell you about it, and that becomes critical in if you're taking it to court, or if you're being taken to court. So providing that audit trail and that legal chain of custody. We talked about compliance a lot. We haven't really talked about it in reference to PST files, but it's definitely a growing problem for a number of organizations, so managing that data sprawl. And it's something that we can do both through discovery and sourcing, location and movement of data across an estate. So what's next? Well, hopefully you found the session useful so far. This has really been a whistle-stop tour of some of our experiences, some of the practicalities of what, why, how, where. If it's something that you feel that is an in-place project, or something that you'd just like a little bit of assistance, whether it's a piece of advice or a little bit of design work, or whether there's a little bit more that you feel we could assist with, let us know. So have a chat with the Advice account manager, and we'll gladly have a chat and talk about what we can do to get you on your very merry way. We're also running some migration lunches. So these are going to be running in February. So they're a great opportunity to meet and network with other clients, other people in your situation, as well as hearing a little bit more in depth on the topics and subjects that we've talked about today. So very much a come and have a chat over a spot of lunch, which we always find is a nice way of doing things. So before we wrap up, do we have any questions? I'm going to turn over to the floor. Hopefully we've covered some fairly good ground, but please do feel free to ask us anything. We are at your disposal. If you've got anything that we haven't yet covered, or things that you think would be useful to know, stick them in the chat window, or just let us know. Or if you prefer to take them offline, just let us know when and where to get in touch.
Thanks, Ed. We do actually have a couple of questions. So the first one is, someone's asked, is there a quick and simple way to understand what the quality of our existing data is as it resides on multiple platforms?
We'll need a bit more information when you refer to multiple platforms. But normally, if you're referring to archiving products, it's until we start doing the pilot, we won't be able to know the quality of your data, provided that you haven't had a corruption or data loss in terms of on disk. It's difficult to ascertain the quality of data by just looking at the database. We can run some queries to find mismatches, but they do take long with the products. Hence, we find it easier running a pilot on a subset of data, picking old and new data in migration to get a sample of what type of problems or throughput we will get in your project.
We certainly find different sources and different storage subsystems tend to have different quality of data. So as Celine mentions, actually doing a pre-scan on all of the data is quite tricky, but which is one of the reasons that we recommend running a pilot approach, because it'll give you a good indication of not just how long it's likely to take and to actually validate the process, but it'll tell you what level of failure you're likely to get, that you can then set expectations both with the legal, compliance, HR, and management if they're interested, if there is an expectation of 100% of data. It also depends on how long you have for the project to take. Obviously, doing a pre-scan is something that some of the tools will help with, but it will just lengthen the nature of the project. What you can do is also break it into phases. So it depends on whether you're going to go in series or in parallel, and whether you have multiple data stores. And again, this partly depends on whether you're talking about M&A activity, or whether it's just a single platform that you're moving, or whether you're bringing different platforms together.
Okay.
Were there any other questions?
Perfect. Yeah, we have another question. So someone's asked, we work in a highly regulated environment. How can you guarantee that chain of custody is being managed properly for certain data?
Oh, that's one of my favourite questions. Thank you for asking. So chain of custody is frankly, singularly, still the most important thing that most organisations have to manage. The way that we do that is actually a combination of things. It's partly the process that we use for actually delivering the project in the first place, and then it's the tool selection or native platform capability. So the way that we run the project means that we're gating each of the stages so that we're gating the approach. When it comes to the data itself, if you look at the source platform, inevitably they'll have some kind of index, or we create an index, or the tool manages an index as we go through the process. The index will contain a record of each individual item which is hashed. So you'll get the individual row and you'll get the detail per item. The reason that we then run reports and the reason that we run the gated process is we will match every single hashed item that's coming out of the source, and we will match it to whether it passes into the target or not. It does depend on the target location. So if we're running a migration from a source into a PST, for example, we'll know that it's in the PST. Some of the migrations that we run become a bit challenging because you do need to make sure that you can report on the move of data from a PST into the cloud. Celine, anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's right. And we provide that report to cloud providers that then they combine with their chain of custody and the hash they created that links end to end, where going into a transient PST file is necessary. Where we are moving end-to-end platforms, we don't need to go to PST. We get the hash back from the target for every single message, and that's fundamental. And we get asked and provide regularly during and at the closure of the project in one of the reports we provide to the clients.
So what we guarantee is we guarantee 100% of reporting. So we'll tell you where 100% of your messages went. We can't promise 100% of migration because inevitably some of the data is either corrupt or can't be found, or for whatever reason isn't accessible. What we found is that that's not historically the problem. The problem is not knowing where it went. So we'll give you the whether it moved, and for the majority we'll also be able to move them. It's just the ones that you can't move that create more of a problem. Were there any other questions or?
Perfect. No, I think that's about all we have time for today. If there are any more questions at a later date, please feel free to email tellmemore@bytes.co.uk or reach out to your Bytes account manager, and we'll do our best to get the answer to you as quickly as possible. As mentioned at the beginning, there will be a copy of this webinar going out in case you missed anything or want to share it with your colleagues. So please keep a lookout for that in your inbox. Anyway, thank you everyone for your participation today. And
thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, perfect. Great, thank you. Thanks to everyone who attended, and have a great day.
Perfect. Cheers, Kathy. Bye now.